It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design.
That's right. Happy Friday, everybody. Another podcast. Yeah. We got Peter Lawrence with us, and joining us, our special guest, Bruno Barbosa.
Right.
Hails all the way from Rochester, Minnesota. And
Bruno, from different.
Bruno, you did a presentation at our big event about Locus of Control.
Right.
And I got a chance to see it, and it really hits home for me because in my line of work, there's a lot of things that happen that are out of my control. And I kind of learned where I fit on the spectrum. What sparked that idea for doing that presentation?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Actually, I like to bring to the big event always something related to the psychological aspects of the profession of being a consultant, but also dealing with people, because this used to be something really hard to me. It's dealing with people and understanding how people do stuff. And I understood after like some years in the business that learning more about myself would actually help me understand other people too, because then I would learn how to accept the differences. And by helping myself in learning about those differences, I say, oh, so this is how you do it. So, okay, now I know where I need to go, and I can accept that a little bit better from other person, right? So I always try to bring that to my discussions and my themes for the big event. And this year, actually, I was talking to my CM, my CM at SDG, and she brought it up. It's like, why don't you speak about the locus of control? And then I say, oh, that's a great idea. So that's where it came from. But from time to time, we talk about that in our meetings, about kind of psychology things and stuff like that, from the challenges that I've been having in my projects and all that. And I always try to kind of assimilate or try to relate that to something that I learned in the past in my previous business. So that's how it came up.
I like it. Awesome. I like the topic because I want to control everything. And as Peter probably knows, but, it's that natural, like when things happen, it's like, control do I have over it? And one of my favorite books is called Extreme Ownership. And it's about, first taking ownership of things, looking inside and like, what could I have done differently? How could I have reacted differently? Did I have a hand in this? And that kind of relates to this. It's like, did I have any control over this situation? Was it within my locus of control? Or is this just a bad deal that happened all around? I don't want to start talking about MacBooks. Yesterday was an especially chaotic day for me.
It was raining MacBooks upon your IT services desk, right?
And I have another project I'm working on, and I have several projects I'm working on, but one is kind of time sensitive, and I don't have control over it, but I do have control over asking for maybe more time. And I do have control over asking for help on some of these day-to-day things that come up. There are people around that have some cycles that could help. Right. So I have to think about that. But my initial reaction is I'm failing because I have all this stuff going on.
You take the pile and you just add one more on top of it, right?
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
So many things. So, Peter, you seem to have your act together most of the time. I don't see you. I see you on this podcast with your nice wooden closet door background.
Yep.
So how much chaos do you have to deal with, and how much do you deal with kind of having to release control, to even think about, like, did I have control over this? Was it within my locus of control?
I will say this, that years of being a consultant. So I've consulted at SDG for 17 years now. And I'd had other years of consulting before that. And one of the lessons I picked up along the way, I don't remember if it was from a book, from book club, or conversation with other consultants, is that if you cannot change something, you just can't, you have no power to change it. You have to let it go. And that just, yeah, you do. it's like, if it's raining today, I have no idea if it is or not because I'm trapped in basement in front of some closet doors, but I can't control that. I can control what I do with that information, try to change my plans if I need to. But for the most part, I'm going to do whatever happens because of that. And the same thing goes at the client, right? There are things that happen at clients that they happen. They happen all the time in business. I need you to do this. I need you to not do that. All right. We've had this discussion before about car washing and things like that, where, if you're working for a client and the client wants you to do something, you do it.
I was thinking if you want it to rain, you wash your car.
That's a way to see that, right? That's a way to consider that. Because I think the end is how you perceive things. Of course, you don't have control, but can you influence somehow? Sometimes you don't have the power, but you can maybe talk to someone and try to do something about it. And then that's how far you can go with something. I think we have two aspects of this. When we say locus of control here, the idea is, where do you perceive that the control is coming from, right? Sometimes you don't think about it. But just like it's raining, you don't have control over that. You can only react to it. What can I do about it to prevent it from causing me any trouble? Like if I have my clothes hanging outside for some reason, all I can do is go out there and get the clothes instead of complaining. Oh my God, it's raining. I forgot my clothes. Oh, you should have got those clothes upstairs. Like complain to your wife, to your kids. So who is the person to kind of be accounted for? And then in the locus of control, we have kind of two aspects of that. You have the internal locus of control, when you understand that you have the control over the stuff that happened to you, or the external locus of control, where you perceive that the world is the one that rules everything that happens to you, right? And there is a spectrum of that. There's a scale on where you perceive yourself in that scale. But the things that are happening is the same with everyone. It's just how you react to it. And knowing that you can choose how you perceive this, it's kind of the big thing in here with this concept.
So for locus of control, is it more about controlling how you react to something happening rather than influencing, or attacking something that you need to change?
Kind of. So there are people that, and I used to be that kind of person, and this is why this concept is so important to me. It made a lot of difference for me, okay? I used to be that person, just like Kyle. I used to like to control every aspect of stuff that happened to me. So I like to have the control because that's how I was raised. That's how I was influenced as a kid. And I would get really upset when something was out of my perception, something was out of what I was expecting to happen. And then I would start blaming people for the mistakes that just happened. And this became really bad when I started working on my own company, or even as a consultant. In the professional life, you cannot not simply point fingers and blame people for mistakes. You actually need to act over it, right? And so this is kind of the perceptions. Like, I want to control everything. There are things that I can't control, but I can do stuff about it, right?
Right.
So this is when you start to understand, oh man, it's like, yeah, this is something that I couldn't control, so I need to accept it and just like think in the future what I can do about it. And then you start to bring more to your internal locus, which means I can control my reactions to stuff that happen, and I can do stuff so they don't happen again in the future.
So you check the weather before you put your clothes out.
Exactly.
So my frustration yesterday about Kurt's MacBook battery having issues, and then Migration Assistant not working when I set up his other one, and then telling him it was his own dang fault for putting this thing on his computer. And even though I didn't know if that was it or not, I was not at my best. My perception of my locus of control was not at the right part of the scale.
Well, yeah, and there were multiple issues coming in from multiple places. And I'm sorry, you chose that chair that you're sitting at that desk that says bring me all your problems. I am the IT department of SGG, right? You can control
So
your
now
reaction to
it's
it.
my fault.
No, you can control your reaction. And yes, it is your fault, Kyle. You put yourself right there, but you can control your reaction to it. There are some things that are beyond your control.
Technical issues that people have with their systems are generally out of my control.
They're super
Most
fun to
likely.
solve, though.
Now, when I reset all the permissions on the HQ and nobody can get to anything, that is on me. Yeah, one time. It happened one time.
One time.
But no, it's I have ideas in my head of things I need to get done and want to do. More urgent matters come up.
Then you crumple it up, throw it away as soon as the first emergency comes in.
And normally it's I can deal with the chaos and I expect it. And there's just something about this week.
So, Bruno,
what are the steps then to get my mind right around this stuff, to get my perception?
Where do you start?
Right. So a few of the things that I mentioned in my studies, right, in my presentation. First, try to figure out where you are on the scale. There are some tests that you can do online to kind of figure out where you are in the locus of control. I remember to share the link. I don't know if you can add the links to this. The first step is recognizing where you are and understanding a little bit of the concept. It's not a long concept. It's not something very large. You don't need to deeply learn about it, but at least learning a little bit about it, I think you will learn about yourself and you recognize, oh man, yeah, I normally take this route because this is something automatic. This is something that you don't think on the daily basis that, oh, okay, I have a new problem. Where is my locus of control? How I'm gonna handle this? It's something automatic that you just react to it, right? So I think that's the very first thing you can do. The second thing is understanding that you can choose how to react to things. So a new problem comes in, you don't need to react it right away. And again, I'm speaking for both spectrums here, right? People that react in a bad manner and people that simply accept it. Okay, bring it down. How does this affect you? How you can actually handle that? And you can choose how to react because it's very automatic for some people to get really pissed with something that goes really, really wrong. I have this case really, and this is recent. This is something from last week. I sold a TV and I didn't test the TV before delivering to the guy. The guy didn't test the TV before bringing it home. When he got it home and turned it on, the TV has a defect. I was not aware of it. The guy wasn't aware of it. I recognized my fault of not testing the stuff. The guy recognizes his fault in testing the stuff. So he's kind of trying to figure out how to fix that TV, right? In the end, I think I'm just going to give the guy the money back because it's taking just too long to kind of solve the problem. And I said, man, this is what I can do. I don't want to kind of keep bothering about this thing.
Right.
It's not worth it, right? But it's kind of, okay, I could at some point say, oh, you didn't test it. It's your fault. It's your problem. I don't care. You handle the TV over there. But it's not my thing to kind of do that, right? I recognize that I have some kind of a blame in the process of not being done it right. Anyways, so choosing how to react, I can simply ignore it, or I can actually get pissed with the guy and say, "Oh no, it's your fault. I don't want to involve with that." Right?
Yep.
So where you are in this. The third aspect here is analyzing why something didn't go the way you intended it to do. Because you're trying to understand what happened that was wrong. Again, you're going to react first, but okay, let me think about this. What I can do next time, right? The last thing is keep learning. It's because these reactions that you normally have, they are something that are built based on the past and the history and the experiences you had in the past.
Right.
So if lots of things that are happening, they're always happening without your control. There's always something that's happening that you couldn't kind of interfere or couldn't kind of avoid that they were happening. You're going to feel that you're kind of powerless beyond those circumstances, right? And this kind of makes you oh man, I can't do anything about this because every time I tried, it never worked. But it's not like that. You can always do something about stuff, even influencing people or influencing some of the circumstances or even avoiding some of the circumstances, right? Just like you mentioned, you can check the weather and I'm not going to do activities outside because there's a chance of 70% that's going to rain that. You can avoid doing it. But if you go, know that it's your choice to be out there with 70% chances of rain. And I think that's pretty much it. So we can actually have a little bit more control over the things, and be more acceptive. I don't know if that word exists, but accept a little bit more the things that are happening to you, and like in the end, like live a happier life, like right. Like,
Bruno, I think it's interesting that you say no matter which end of the spectrum you happen to be on for this, you should not react like as sort of more on the accepting end of the spectrum. I shouldn't accept everything automatically, which I think is an interesting take, because obviously you think when you're on the more controlling side, like, oh yeah, you have to let go of some control. But when you've let go of a lot of control, you still have to hold on to some. And I think that's an interesting difference that you don't really hear about a whole lot.
Yeah, there's a balance, right, for everything. If you think you can control everything, you're gonna suffer, man. You're gonna be really stressed out all the time because you cannot. And that's it, right?
Well, all right. So I think when I reflect on it, it's my like frustration with, not knowing MacBooks like nearly as good as PCs. Like I can take it apart, every little piece of it, and put it back together. And Windows, I can troubleshoot drivers and OS and all that kind of stuff all day long. And then I get on a MacBook and it's kind of a mystery. But there's the people pleaser in me. I get frustrated that people are frustrated because their stuff's not working and I can't, and they're stuck. And it's like, okay, I can't get them unstuck right now. And that's what's frustrating, is I want them to have a good experience. I want them to have working stuff. That's like the most important thing in my job, is to keep people working. And so and then, things that just get under your skin, like buying something new and have it not work, and the frustrating process of getting tech support from a company, a big company, which, there's a lot of that is out of my control. Looking forward, the ownership I'm taking is, okay, I need to have better device management, to prevent some of these. There's a few problems that I keep experiencing that I need to do something about. There's the reality of, I didn't set that machine up, so I don't really know what kind of has happened with it. I read a book a long time ago, and it was real popular at the time, called 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, written by Stephen R. Covey. And he talks about sphere of influence. Mm-hmm. And how you want to stay within your sphere of influence, because that's all you really can manipulate. That's all you can affect. Right. So is that, Bruno, you sound like you're familiar with that book. Is that the same thing as Locus of Control?
So first of all, I'm familiar with the title. I heard about it. I never read the book. So I don't know. I really don't know.
That's totally fair. But now, so we've talked about where we are in this whole spectrum and understanding ourselves and getting to know ourselves better. Mm-hmm. Can we change?
Yeah, and this is the beauty of the theory here, right? Everything that you have in the current state that you are, it's probably based on your previous experiences, but you can start creating new experiences from now on to kind of change that a little bit. So your automatic reaction not to be to blame someone or not to simply let it go. You can start to train yourself to, okay, I can do something about it, or this is kind of the kind of circumstances that I just need to delegate or let it go or not worry about, right? So you can start creating those. The locus of control changes over time. One of the person that taught me that theory, right? They mentioned that some events in our lives, they kind of can change right away the way we perceive our automatic reactions. I have an example for a close friend here. It's like he wanted to weightlift. He wanted to do bodybuilding. He wanted to participate kind of a contest, right, by the middle of the year. And then when was January, he got COVID, so he had to spend a month without training. And then after he got better, he twisted his ankle playing volleyball, so he couldn't train as much again. And then on the 3rd or 4th month, him and his wife, they found out that she had cancer. So she had to go over treatment. She's all good now. It's like everything worked out just fine.
Oh, good.
But it was like 3 strikes in a row during that year. And he was like, man, I'm impotent to all the circumstances. There is nothing that I could have done about it. So, and then it kind of, for a certain amount of time, you just like become a little bit more external to your locus of control, right? It's like, is the world kind of giving you more signs of, dude, I need to accept more stuff. I don't have control over everything. But then if you start kind of, if you're conscious about that, if you know that kind of things exist, you can actually keep working on yourself and like look for help, or it's like talk to people, talk to friends, building up that confidence again that you actually can control things, and try to create more positive experiences in the future based on the experiences you had. One thing is they talk to friends. The cancer was something that was in the initial kind of phase. We had lots of doctors here. They're our friends in Rochester, like is where Mayo Clinic is. So they were all kind of telling them, right? Oh, dude, like this is where you should go. This is what you should do. Like, and then I think in 3 months she was all good from that problem. Nice. And then they started, okay, now, and they're all good now. Like they're pretty good. So yeah, there are some phases in your life that you're going to change. Some phases that some things are going to happen. Someone close to you dies, for instance. Right. That's something that's going to affect you profoundly for a couple of weeks, for instance, right? Maybe for more. So. And you don't have control over that. And that will shift a little bit to the worst side. But you can always kind of go to more internal control, go to more to the balanced side of the scale by understanding where you are and how you can react to things. This is the hardest piece. Like controlling how you react to things, I think is the hardest part for me.
So are you dead center now? Are you right in the middle and perfectly balanced?
No, man. Not at all. No. And I know I vary a lot. Like, I don't know. I have some automatic reactions sometimes so for instance, I moved from Brazil, right? So most of my friends, I'm living in the United States for 4 years now. Most of my friends are in Brazil, so I don't have that much contact with them anymore.
Right.
And the friendship here is different. Sometimes for weeks in a row, I don't have contact with people. I don't actually meet them. And I understand that this is something that affects me a lot. And then I start to when I meet people for the first time, I want to kind of put everything out. And this makes me a little bit more, dude, I think I'm speaking too much. And then I feel a little bit more, oh man, I think I'm not controlling myself. I'm not controlling my reactions the way I would do if I was more balanced. So there are phases in your life.
So just like Buddhism, you kind of have to continue to work on yourself and keep up the practice. And it's not an instant. There's no quick fixes. There's no magic tea that you can drink or anything like that. You're going to just have to work on it and keep practicing.
Yeah, it's not something that I think all the time, but it's something that, oh man, like I think I'm reacting too automatic. I'm reacting too fast. I think I need to be better on controlling that.
Well, that's a good signal, is that you're reacting to something. And if, I think like what's a tool to make yourself better at that I found is meditation, mindfulness meditation, where you learn to notice your emotional state and reacting to your thoughts that are like bubbling through your head, and then not engage with them. So you're not taking on the emotional baggage, ruminating on it. And I've meditated for a lot of years, but I forget to use that tool when I've got 4 MacBook issues on the same day. It's you're too in the moment, like, and that's the thing, is being too invested maybe in controlling your day, too invested in people pleasing, not wanting to disappoint people. I think that's a great tool, is to take that step back, evaluate, and then move forward based on, what you really had to do with the situation. I think control is, people say control is an illusion. It's, well, no, you can control things. There's things you can decide to do. And I think controlling your locus of control is possible. I looked at that spectrum. I don't know if we described the spectrum yet of the internal, where you take on the responsibility of what's happening, that you control that, versus on the other end, the external, where things are just happening to you, bad luck. It's outside forces versus inside forces.
Yes.
I think that, you're not going to really ever find yourself at one point on that scale. I think it's floating around based on what's going on. I don't know if there's good or bad in this. There's just learning, maybe being a little happier during the day.
So, Kyle, we've talked about this, and Bruno both. I'm just thinking about our podcaster who happens to not be here right now, and how his locus of control has been impacted pretty much. And being in IT, there are a lot of times where, like, a Sev 1 issue or an urgent issue comes down to the whole team. Everybody has to throw everything aside and focus on that one. You have to go swarm a problem or something like that. And it's interesting to, our careers have been sort of focused around firefighting, they call it. Firefighter, their locus of control is a little bit, things are out of their control too, right? Except the choice to be a firefighter, right?
Yeah, and I think it's all about also the accountability. So if you're fighting firefighting, okay, this is not my problem, but I want to solve it, and I want to make sure that this is not going to happen again. Right? So I think that's one aspect. The other aspect that many people also have is, okay, there's this problem happening here. I don't want this problem happening now, so I'm going to fix it as quick as I can so I can get back to what was comfortable.
Right.
But know that might cause some other issues in the future. But be conscious about that, depending what you do, right? So I think it's a little bit about that accountability. I think one other example that I can bring, like maybe outside of the IT area, but a little bit more general, is I like to mention my dad, because he's more external. It's like his internal life, his entire life, he was always more external. And I know a friend of him that does the same business that he does, and it's more successful, I would say. Okay, so my dad is a car dealer in Brazil, and he, of course, has lots of friends that are also car dealers. And I remember talking to one of his friends and they work with selling cars, used cars, for the same amount of time. But for some reason, my dad is not as successful as this guy, right? And again, this was never something that I tried to understand deeply, but some of these signs, and once I learned this locus of control thing, and knowing my dad and knowing this friend, I kind of started realizing my dad, for him, the market is always bad. So he's always trying to make money with the cars, right? Because okay, this car here is an opportunity. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to try to sell it with a higher price, and that's it. Right. But then he gets stuck with cars for 2 years, 3 years, and this is really bad for his business.
Yeah.
The other friend, and I talked to this guy before moving to the US. He has a formula in his head, which is not a formula. It's just like his way of controlling things. Sure. Instead of seeing an opportunity and reacting to it, oh, this is a good opportunity. I'm going to buy this car. I'm going to try to sell it more for a higher price. He has a list of cars that he knows that the market buys. So he never goes out of that list, because he knows that there is a chance that he might not sell that car, regardless if he can sell it for a more expensive price. Sure. But if he gets the car for too long, this is not kind of generating money. So he has a list of cars, and he told me, dude, I told your dad to just use these or this car to buy. Never buy any cars other than those, because then you're always gonna keep moving the cars, and then you can generate money with that. Yep. And my dad doesn't have that mindset. Like he reacts to the opportunities that he sees, and he just tries to grab it, and then he gets stuck with things. And
this was such a good deal.
Exactly. No, I'm buying because it's a good deal, right? That's that kind of stuff. And then you have a garage full of stuff. Anyway.
So when you learned about this and internalized it, applied it to yourself, doing the presentation, doing the podcast, you're trying to help other people to see it, and develop the tools to kind of get in a place on that spectrum where you can kind of maximize your happiness among chaos.
And again, you can be happy in any aspect of this spectrum.
Any place along there, you can be happy, right?
Yes.
So is this something then that you can use to help other people? Do you see when others are having these kind of issues and you see opportunities to kind of coach, or at least talk someone down from,
And this is a tricky piece because remember that friend that twisted his ankle that I just mentioned to you guys?
Yeah.
So when he twisted his ankle, I asked him, like, dude, calm down. Why you're angry? So he just looked at me and said, why do you think I'm angry, man? So it's hard, like in the moment, it's hard, right? But of course, later I kept talking to him, like, man, like things are gonna move forward. This is just a phase. You can still kind of bring it up and get back to it. But yeah, I think it's what bothers me the most, and what I like to kind of help people about this is that sometimes you're blaming others for things that you could have. I think it's the big deal here, right? And again, this is not something that happens only on the professional aspect. It happens on my family. It happens on my friends. And you see these things happening from time to time where something goes wrong and then people start blaming each other for things that they should have done. Dude, it's in the end, like if you can like internalize a little bit of that accountability, I think everybody gets something out of it. One other example in the personal aspect of your life, you start moving to your wife. I don't know if you guys remember when you first started living together with someone. Like to me, was when I was 32 years old. I left my house, and dude, it was a hell in the first month because everything was wrong, right? Because you recognize the different values that you have from your partner once you move with them, right? And someone came to me and said, dude, instead of trying to change them, try to change yourself. Try to just like come out there and do the stuff that you think is the right one. Because then you're going to try to balance that at some point. Because if you don't accept the differences, if you don't accept that the other person thinks a little bit different than you, this is going to be hard for you, right? So control what you can. Control that you can go get to your house and kind of clean and do the stuff that you want you want them to be, instead of just trying to convince people that they should do the way you want them to do.
Yeah. I after reading one of my favorite books, Extreme Ownership, I mentioned it like I think 5 times a podcast, but that's the thing is, like for example, I need to purchase, maybe I want to purchase a new computer for work and I have to go and get that approved. I can't just spend $4,000, at least telling my boss, So if I go and I ask for it and he shoots me down, what's the response? Oh, he's, he doesn't like me, doesn't want me to have good stuff. He's out to get me.
AI, man.
Doesn't get it, man. I need the horsepower. The ownership piece is, did I explain well enough? Did I build my case? Did I provide enough information? And I got some really good advice from a guy, a CEO of a company I worked with back. I started in '99, and because I was the IT guy, I got to walk in his office and sit at his desk, and he sat at the guest chair, and then I say things like, Steve, you're just not working out. We're going to have to let you go. So we had fun, and 10 new laptops, and I requested them, and he shot it down. And I went back to him and I said, what's the deal? And he said, you didn't give me any information. He said, here's how it works. You go and you do your homework, you do your research, you build your case, you walk in here with a wheelbarrow full of information, and you're going to maybe give me a big report. I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to know that you did your homework. I'm going to ask you what it says. So it's like, okay, now I understand like what my part is. My part is to do my due diligence and put together the information I need. And so it's like you take that ownership on, and it kind of changes the way you think about things. Like when you hear no, maybe you want a customer to go with a certain technology and they don't want to.
Yep.
Yeah. And you know the rule, Peter.
I do.
What is it?
You ask twice and then you just accept.
So no, when you hear a no in this moment based on what we know, what you've provided, and then that second time you ask, that's when you need to take the ownership of really evaluating, like, how did you present it the first time?
Right.
how can you do a better job of that? And that I believe that ownership is in your locus of control, and that also helps you to stop playing the blame game. I love blaming people for stuff. I blame Ben Story for everything. And
guy.
I don't think anything's ever been his fault.
No.
But it's kind of a game. No, it's an inside joke. But blame is useless.
It's the easy route.
It is. And it's natural. Like, I don't want to be the one that failed. I don't want to be the one that is responsible for something bad. So I'm going to just deflect over to Peter and say he did it. And it's easier, but it's not productive, and it's negative. So that's, taking on that ownership approach has really helped me. The meditation stuff, being able to, take a step back. Like today I'm fine. I'm in a good mood, but I still have most of the problems
Most
that
of the
I had
problems did
yesterday
not go
to
away,
deal
did
with.
they?
But it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to take these one at a time. Whoever can't do their work gets my priority attention. And I fall back on my, kind of my mindset of doing this job. And I think that helps. The word mindset keeps coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of value there. So what's the mindset for the locus of control concept?
I quite didn't get the question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The context of the question. I got lost.
Right. So the mindset I have, if I'm optimally doing my job, the mindset I have is that I have a very loose handle on my plan. My plan is going to change.
Mm-hmm.
Things are going to happen. Problems are going to happen. Chaos. I'm going to be disappointment is going to happen.
Yep.
Frustrated people are going to happen.
Yep.
And I have to my goal is not only to fix their problem, but to make them feel better. Like one of the most common things I hear is, I'm an idiot. It's like, no, you're not. You're having a technical issue. You're not the IT person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You deal in this other space, and you're really good at this stuff. You're a genius over here, so don't think you're an idiot just because you don't know the Windows driver issues. So my mindset is really be flexible, go with the flow.
Yes.
Understanding my tendency to be a people pleaser, which means overpromising, and making sacrifices I might not need to.
Right.
Putting things on aside that I might not need to. It's okay if this doesn't happen today.
Yes.
It's okay if someone has to wait for something. I don't have to take on all of the burden of these situations. So that's kind of my mindset. And when I don't set my mind that way,
when I
forget, then I have a Thursday and a Wednesday that I had. So I guess I've answered my own question. That's how I kind of work the locus of control to try to be in the right spot and my perception of it.
Yes.
Because it kind of goes back to that perception of, are you living in reality? Or is this truly out of your control? Is this truly something that just happened? Yeah, I think it's a great concept to keep in mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, taking it back to your example of your father, Bruno, is like he's exercising his control, not necessarily in the way that told him would work better for him, right?
Yeah, he's just reacting. And I think the example that Kyle is saying here is that Kyle is exposed to the frustrations of people and to many other things that he doesn't have control. But being aware that you're exposed to that,
right,
he can choose how to react to those because this is what he's choosing to do. Kyle doesn't have to be there to like solving these kinds of problems for others, but he chooses to be there because it's something that you like to do. So understanding that you're choosing to be there every day, it's your choice. And again, it's not necessarily what you can control, but how much of that you can actually accept and handle, right? There will be days that you won't be as acceptive, but you need to control your reactions. And that's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
It's just being conscious about it, being I don't know if that's a word. Actually,
Conscious is the word. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just need to be conscious about it. You know that it exists. You know that you have to handle with the chaos at some point, and you're open to it. So that's a choice that you're making. That's something that's your control.
One thing I noticed this week is I haven't done a good job of that, and I've kind of been like owly and storming around. I work with such caring people that when they see that, they worry about me because they're like really good people. And it's like, oh no, now I'm making them feel bad. Well, because I'm not handling this well and signaling to everybody around me that I'm having a bad day by, growling and making faces and complaining. And yeah.
That's
Man,
interesting.
I have a lot of work to do.
It's interesting that you can your control, your own control can be expressed outwardly to others and probably impact them as well, right?
Emotion. People are empathetic, and emotions are kind of contagious,
right?
And so you have to be careful that you're not carrying a bug that's going to spread around. It's when you're truly in a situation that is completely out of your control. I had surgery one year, similar to my gallbladder tried to kill me. Peter's tried to kill him.
Yep.
Yeah. But that's a situation where your plans, whatever you thought you were going to be doing, all gone. And you're in this situation where this is going to take a while. This isn't a quick fix. I'm not going to be back on my feet in a day or two. This is a thing. Mm-hmm. And it took me about 5 or 6 days into it to come to that conclusion that, I knew right away that something serious was happening, but then just accepting that, okay, this will pass. I will get better. It made it much easier to deal with, and it made my attitude a lot better. It's just remembering to use the tools, and I think that's been helpful. I think a lot about people as well, and I think a lot about like the human brain and how we deal with things, and then I find myself not really taking advantage of all of that. But it's fascinating, and it's the amount you can grow as a person,
right?
And life is better the better you get at kind of understanding yourself and working on that piece.
Well, yeah, and Bruno, this has made positive change for you, right? Just the mere understanding of it and knowing when to reflect and when to change, or when to maybe hold off on a decision or an action, right?
And again, it's like controlling how, and this is my big lesson, was that I need to control a little bit better how I react to things, and not always things are bad, or not always they are intentional from other people. They're all also trying to do their best. I just need to understand that, like, dude, this is not the way I thought it would be, or something happened to me and I can't control this, but what I can do about it, right? And I think that's the big question that I always ask myself on circumstances that are not positive. What can I do about it? What can I do about it? What can I do about it? If I can do something, I will not spend too much time and stress out about it anymore. Because, okay, I can't do anything about this. I will maybe vent that with someone, right? But let it go, man. I don't want to complain with the wrong person that can't do anything about it. I won't change anything by doing that. I'm only going to stress out that person.
Right.
I can vent it out, like, okay, now let it go. That's kind of my personal formula for this kind of things. Sometimes my wife mentions, dude, you already told that for 3 people. I say, yes, I'm still venting it out.
Sometimes it takes more time to vent it all out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like when you keep venting to people, you keep dredging this up and you're keeping it alive. Like your intention, at first you're venting to get, you got to get it out. I've got all this stress and whatever, and it's going to help if I talk to people about it. After a while, it's like, okay, this song is getting old and people are tired of hearing it. And my venting is done. I need to kind of move on. And that's another thing I think is moving on from things, like you're saying, with realizing you don't have control lets you move on from something.
Exactly. And I think venting is it's that tool. if you keep doing that, it's not going to change the circumstance, and it's not going to change you, the way you perceive that. Venting is exactly a tool for internal purposes, right? Let it go.
Right.
I want to get it out of me. So if you tell that to someone, so they can, oh, I understand the frustration, or you kind of get maybe this person's going to give you a solution for it. Some people have that power sometimes, but it's just like taking it out of you and just like accepting it after that. Just forget, man. Like, okay, go for it.
Maybe have a rule like 2 times. You get 2 times to vent. Yeah. You know, my love for complaining does not translate to others into their love of hearing me complain.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So I think I've learned a lot today.
Yeah, I think this is interesting. And the first feedback that I got from this presentation that I did was really cool. I forgot who gave me that feedback, but they mentioned that their kids were in a phase in their lives where there was some stuff happening, and maybe understanding a little bit of the locus of control and what you can do about it might help a little bit how you can grow over those situations, right? And I thought it was really, really interesting. This is one of those things too, Kyle, just as a wrap up here. A friend of mine told me about the ripple effect. Sometimes we just do a presentation for SDG. There are 30 people, 40 people in a room, but those people are going to learn about that. And then you're doing a podcast that is going to affect other hundreds of people. And then these people are going to learn, and then you have this ripple effect. So when you asked me about how this can help people, and I would like to help people, I think it's a little bit more about that, having kind of people being in knowledge or being self-aware of these kind of concepts, that they exist and people study them. They can learn a little bit about the concept and learning a little bit about themselves, and kind of reproduce that to people that are close to them, right? I think this is my way of trying to contribute to that. I like to think about it.
I can't top it. All I can say is thank you.
Yeah.
For being here and keeping it going. And hopefully we'll see some ripples. I see one coming toward my office. Awesome. Well, I think with that, we can just say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. Thank you very much for inviting me for this one.
Thanks for being here.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com, or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.